Welcome everyone to the 2018 Preschool Mindfulness Summit. I'm very happy to welcome our next guest, Brenda Salgado. She is the author of a great book that she's going to tell us about later called Real World Mindfulness for Beginners, Navigate Daily Life One Practice at a Time. And she's also the consultant at the Naplanta Center for Healing in California, and she has a degree in developmental psychology and other things, and she does lots of wonderful work in the community that she will be telling us about. So welcome, Brenda. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the invitation, Helen. I'm really honored to be part of this with you.
Great, thank you. So before we get into things, yes, can you tell us a little bit about the name of the center that you have? Yeah.
Thank you for asking. The Nepantla Center for Healing and Renewal and Nepantla Consulting that I do. Nepantla is an indigenous word from Central America, and it means literally bridge builders. There's a really wonderful scholar named Gloria Anzaldúa who did a lot of work around indigenous language in Mexico and Central America, and this word Nepantlera would describe a person who is one who walks between worlds and someone who builds bridges between different people and different ways of seeing the world. So she talked about people who kind of their purpose in life is to help people see across difference and to have transformation in the human family and to find understanding across a lot of difference, which is really needed in this time. There's a lot of indigenous wisdom that's really needed right now because we're in one of these really divisive times, and I know that indigenous people carry a lot of medicine for what that might look like. Yeah.
So we have a lot of parents on the summit, and a lot of teachers, and people are at different levels of knowing about mindfulness. But there's a lot of people that have messaged me and things, and they really are at a beginning level, and they don't really know much, but they keep hearing about how great it is. So could you first of all just maybe explain in what your perception, what you think mindfulness is, and how mindfulness and meditation might be different or might be the same?
Yes. And first I want to bow to our audience because the way I was raised, teachers of children, people who are raising children are one of the most important roles in society and in indigenous culture because you're raising the next generation. And then just also our children are our future. We talk a lot about the next 7 generations. So big bows to you for wanting to bring this into your family and your teaching life. And then the other thing I'll just say, because my perspective is probably a little different from some of the other people on the summit. I have been the director of a Buddhist meditation center, and I've definitely gone to a lot of Buddhist retreats. But I feel like my foundation around mindfulness and presence and interconnection is really rooted in my native Central American roots and what I've been taught by my medicine teachers from there. So mine is a little bit more kind of weaved across different parts of the world that way. And for us, one of the things that I really love, I used to interview Native American elders in the US for a report I was doing around what their contemplative and spiritual practices were that helped them do good things in the world and in their communities. And they would get really stuck on this phrase practice. They would say, for us, it's a way of life. It's not a practice. I don't sit on a pillow and I'm present, for an hour a day. I'm raised from a young child to be present everywhere I go, to be present with that tree, with that stone, with that river, with that cat, with my mother, with my sister, with my grandmother, and with my inner knowing, my inner spirit. So I really take that to heart, that they have taught me that it's a way of life. It's not a practice. Yet practices can help us open up to that way of being so that it can become more automatic or regular for us. So some of the things that I talk about in the book, which I'll share the link to later, but it's called Real World Mindfulness for Beginners. It's got chapters in 10 different areas of life we might have trouble in, with 1, 2, 3 minute exercises. So this is really great for people who want short exercises that they can do with kids in the classroom. So things like cultivating gratitude and joy, dealing with stress and worry. So a lot of those can be adapted to for use in the family. So in one of my first chapters there, I talk first actually about the myths of meditation, because I think there's a lot of stuff that people see out there in the world. And so people think that mindfulness is the exact same thing as meditation. Meditation is a form of mindfulness, but it's not the only form. There's mindful walking, there's mindful eating. So I also like to help people understand that, because my mindfulness is best when I'm in nature and when I'm still and when I'm in ceremony. For my husband, his mindfulness is best when he's out in nature and he's like canoeing or kayaking or hiking. He has a really hard time sitting still. That doesn't work for him. So mindfulness can take many forms, and it's not necessarily sitting meditation. That's the first myth I talk about. The second one is that people have this myth that if I'm not happy and peaceful every time I'm meditating or in a mindfulness session, then I must be doing it wrong, or there's something wrong with me. That's something I hear a lot in retreats and in classes. So the point is to be present with whatever is inside of us at the moment, and however we're reacting to things, and to notice that without judgment. One of the teachers I know talked a lot about you want to be in a place where your mind is still, but periodically you might see clouds floating by. That's a thought of, oh, I forgot to turn off the stove, or oh, I'm really angry at my sister right now and I'm not being mindful. You know, whatever it is that might be. But I remember Pema Chodron said, notice the cloud and say, oh, and let it move on. You know, it's okay. Don't get mad at the cloud. The clouds are going to come by and it's okay. But how much is the cloud? Oh, shoot, I'm sorry. We'll make sure that's off. Not our house phone doing. Here we go. Sorry about that. Almost no one ever calls me on that phone. It's so funny, because most people phone me on my cell these days. So that's what's been interesting to me, is this sense of like, if I'm not happy and peaceful, I'm doing it wrong. No, Pema Chodron talked a lot about how you could watch these clouds come by and notice it and then let them keep going by. It's more about not attaching to them and going down in the spiral with that story of the thought or the emotion. It's okay to observe it, but not to give it a lot of life necessarily. And then the third one, I think, is that people think they should have no thoughts at all. And if they have any thoughts, whether they're good or bad, then they're doing it wrong again, right? And so we're human thinking machines. We've been very well trained to have thoughts, and it's a natural occurrence. So again, not to beat ourselves up, to have some self-compassion with us, with ourselves, when we find that it's kind of like a dog who's on a scented trail and maybe he veers off because he sees a pine cone and goes, oh, I got it back to the scented trail, you know. And he's not a bad dog. He's just noticing something and coming back to his task. And then the fourth myth, I think that's really prevalent for a lot of people, is that I need a lot of time to do this. I have to go on a week-long retreat, or I have to meditate 2 hours a day for it to be of any service. And the truth is, we can stop at any point during the day and just take a mindful moment where we take 9 deep breaths, or we do a body scan and see how we're holding our body. Like, we might notice that we're tense. We want to let that go. So mindfulness doesn't have to be this long commitment to be of usefulness in your life. And you might find that when you do the short pieces, you suddenly have a hunger for more. But if you don't, that's okay too. You know, whatever works for you. So when I've most heard folks, so that's a little bit about what mindfulness is not to me. You know, everybody has very different opinions about what it is. So I am only speaking from my perspective. But what I have heard most often around what it is noticing the present moment, being present in what's happening within you and around you at any given moment, and the capacity to be really present that way. So much of the time, we're thinking about the past and having a lot of emotion around what happened, or we're worrying about the future, but we're not really here. So for me, most important central part of it is just being present in this moment right now. And then the second is, for me, being really grounded in the body. I think that we have been very well indoctrinated in this society to be in our heads, and we're not connected to the earth or to our body or our emotions. We're very suppressive of emotions in the West. And so that's not my experience. Growing up with Central American people, we're very emotive. We're very, very into our emotions. But I see how people kind of close in. And I think one of the understandings I have as a traditional medicine woman or curandera is that when we suppress emotions, especially traumatic ones, then energetically they lodge in our bodies and can cause harm, illness, dis-ease, discomfort. So for us, being present with our thoughts and our emotions in the present moment helps us to keep energy flowing and not getting stuck in our bodies. And then the third that I think about when I'm describing what mindfulness is this capacity to recognize thoughts and emotions for what they are. We're not denying them, we're not suppressing them, we're not making them bad or good or right or wrong. We're just seeing them as the current state that's passing through our body. And I've heard different teachers talk about, they're guests that are passing through our home. And we might want to say hi to them, but we don't want to set up a lodging for them to stay there permanently. So we recognize them as guests that are here at the moment, and they may be here a while, or they may leave tomorrow, or they may just be fleeting. And so we recognize them as what we're experiencing at this moment and noticing that. And so the last piece for me around mindfulness is really encouraging curiosity about ourselves and our thoughts and our emotion, curiosity about other people's thoughts and emotions, curiosity about what's happening, and perhaps how our thoughts and emotions or past experience are the filters through which we're seeing that may not be somebody else's experience. And so this other piece that's really underlies the curiosity is having a non-judgmental attitude, being present with what is, and what is for me and what is around me. And just being it's hard to be present when we're in judgment, because we have a story that we're putting over what's happening and we can't see it any other way. So those are the things that speak to me most about being present, being grounded in our body, recognizing our thoughts and emotions, having curiosity and non-judgmental attitude. And then I think for the Indigenous person that I am, a very, very deep layer for me is the interconnectedness of all things. I have a connection to my cat who's sleeping over here right now. I have a connection to my husband. I have a deep relationship with the trees around my house. I meditate with them every day and every morning. There's stone people on my altar that I use in my healing work, and they heal me too. So there's this piece for me too that I am this discrete being, and I'm not this discrete being. I'm part of everything that is, and I have responsibility to everything that is, as well as relationship with everything that is. So those are kind of my overall thoughts about introduction to mindfulness.
I love the way that you put that, and thank you for going over the myths as well, because I think I hear those kind of things all the time as well. Like, I'm doing it wrong. No, I tried it and it didn't work.
I can't do it. Yeah, I can't do it.
My thoughts keep popping in my head, and that's great. So obviously there's lots more tips in the book as well. And we'll put the link down for people if they want to order the book as well. So what through your work and your center, what are some of the benefits that you've seen when people that haven't been practicing mindfulness bring mindfulness into their lives and become more mindful?
Yeah, I would say they have more moments of peace and of compassion than they probably did before. Certainly isn't 100% of the time, but it's more available to them. I think when they're in challenges or difficulty or struggle in their life, they're better able to step back and see the landscape of what's going on and see the choices they have instead of reacting purely from emotion. I think that's a real gift, to have a sense of choice. And that makes you feel more powerful, not just when things are going well, but also when you're going through challenge. I think it's made, in my women's circle that's been meeting for 4 years, we do meditation in there sometimes as well as other things. And I see how it's made them better communicators with each other, kinder, less competitive with each other, and more collaborative, which I think is really amazing, because I think that's how we're meant to be. I also think, excuse me, I also think it's helped people tap into some deep purpose around what they want to do with their life right now. And to listen in more to their inner knowing and their intuition, to their heart, and kind of giving less. The way I think about it, this is the way I talk to people all the time, that my understanding as an Indigenous person of the time we're in is that humanity is in a moment of evolution and consciousness. And so all this turbulent stuff that's lower vibration is coming to the surface to be released, and that's necessary. You know, when I worked at a vet hospital, if an animal came with an infected leg, we would have to cut that leg open to drain out the pus for that leg to heal. And I think of humanity's consciousness right now as being in that place where we're injured and we're kind of, all the pus is rising to the surface so it can be released and the collective body can be healed. And so I think about a lot of things in that interconnected way, not just the individualistic way, because I don't live in the individualistic worldview. And that has a lot to do with my parents and my culture. So I think a lot about that in terms of the importance of people learning mindfulness right now. If we are going to elevate our consciousness as humanity and build a better world for the next 7 generations, mindfulness is really important for us to be present with what's working and what's not working, and to lift up the things that aren't working, and allow us to have some much needed overdue conversations about what we want to release that's no longer working and what we want to build that's needed now, and to teach our children especially. This is why I was really excited about the summit. I think children are much better at mindfulness than adults are, actually, because they're still in their body, they're still in the present moment. You don't hear kids worrying about 10 years from now. They sometimes will like lament about something that happened yesterday with their best friend, but for the most part, children live a lot more in the present, and they learn from us how to get unpresent. And they become more like that as they get older. And so if anything, children have a lot to teach us about being in the present moment, and being in our bodies, being in our breath, and just that joy of being in nature and looking at animals and not taking things for granted that way, like seeing the world as new every day. Because for kids, a lot of times their experience is this whole new thing that we just think of as normal or take for granted. Yeah, so I think there's both a lot of joy in teaching children mindfulness, but there's also things they have to teach us that we've forgotten.
I definitely agree with that. I think they kids see us and they model us, don't they? And sometimes
Yeah.
I need to be modeling them. So for the parents or teachers that are on here, what kind of things would you suggest that they do with their kids to promote mindfulness and more connection with their child or kids in their classroom?
Yeah. If you have a child and in your family, if you have access, to playground or trees, I really think trees are great partners in meditation. Every morning I do tree meditation. Mine is probably a little more complicated than you want to do with children, but so what I'm looking at one of my tree friends right now that I was meditate with, and so what I'll often do is just get into the centered place where I'm slowing my breath, getting present, like looking at the tree. If it's a nice day, I may be outside with the tree, touching the tree, next to the tree, under the tree. But when it's colder, like it is today, I might just be outside looking at the window at it. So it doesn't have to be outdoors to appreciate it. And then I'll, once I feel like I've slowed my breath enough and I'm kind of present in my body, I'll think about the kind of person I want to be. A higher consciousness, loving, compassionate, generous, powerful, serving humanity in this time of transition. There's a lot of prophecy for Indigenous people about the time we're in. So I'll ask the tree to help me breathe in these ideas of unity consciousness, connecting with Mother Earth, compassion, kindness, patience. And then I'll ask the tree to please, and that's on my in-breath. I'm receiving from the tree who already knows how to be interconnected and loving and generous, because, you know, they give us branches, flowers, medicine. They're nests for birds. You know, they're living what we're trying to become all the time. And so they just say, just be, stop trying. So my breathing in, I'm asking it to help me become the person I want to be. And then as I breathe out, I ask it to receive the things that are in my way. So what is in the way of me being that person I want to be? Am I being impatient? Am I being arrogant? Am I not forgiving? Am I, being judgmental? And I said, please, may I release this to you for you to compost with the earth. And so that's a great meditation that you can adapt with children, I think, to say out loud with them that we're going to breathe with the tree. And then ask the child, what do you want to cultivate today? What kind of person do you want to be today? And then ask that tree together, can you help us to be more patient and loving today? Can you help us to be more playful? I love that kids teach us playfulness. And then we can say, what do we want to let the tree take away for us that we don't want today? You might say sadness, anger. You know, kids are much more attuned to their emotions, so they'll probably be really good at doing this with you. So that's one really beautiful option. The other sometimes is having children meditate as if they are a tree and feeling their feet really grounded and rooted in Mother Earth, and asking Mother Earth to send up all that energy through our feet to help us, because she nourishes us so much with food, with medicine, with all these good things, and also with composting the things that don't serve us. So children can be visualizing their body as a tree, their feet as their roots, taking up all that delicious golden love energy up from the earth into their body. And they can imagine standing tall and in their dignity like a tree would do. And then they can imagine reaching up to the skies with their fingers and thinking about the stars and whatever spirit that might work for you, or it could just be for the heavens. And to say, I'm going to take up all that beautiful energy up here, and I'm going to make great fruit that I bring out into the world to share with other people. So there's lots of ways you can use trees as good allies and friends to think about that exchange around what you want to cultivate and release, or around children are great at imagining things like that and feeling their joy as a tree. I know that I did when I was a child. And you can use, make it shorter for children, maybe 7 to 9 breaths, and longer if you're an adult and you want more time. We probably need it more than they do. You can also map onto that things like, you want them to think about good ideas in their head, this part of the tree over here, the crown where the branches are going to come. They can think about having a healthy heart that's loving and kind over here, that's at the core of the tree. They can think about their feet as being their destiny, where they want to walk, where they want to go today, what they want to do today. There's lots of different ways you can use that analogy of the tree with children. So that's one that has many uses, I think. And I think it serves to really connect children to Mother Earth and our tree guides. The other is, and I talk about this in the book, as do some of the other chapter authors, about body scans. I did this recently at Genentech and with another group of people too. Just having people close their eyes, having children close their eyes and just notice their feet, how they're feeling. Are they cold? Are they warm? Do they hurt? Do they want to wiggle? Do they want to be still? And then moving up the body, like feeling your knees, your calves, your thighs, feeling the feeling of your clothes against your body. Feeling, trying to imagine feeling all the beautiful organs we have in our abdomen, and all the things, our stomach maybe digesting our breakfast and helping us get those nutrients out. There's other parts that are helping to clean us. Having them feel their back, their heart area, their arms, their shoulders, their fingers, their neck, their head. And the nice thing about doing body scan with children is they can just notice if they're feeling anything there that feels good or doesn't feel good, without any kind of judgment about it. Just like, how does it feel? And then they can also send, after they do the scan, you can tell them, find those places that are feeling a little bit sad or hurt right now, and let's send them some love. Let's pull up some energy from Mother Earth, from some golden light from Mother Earth, and send that into that part of that body that's not feeling very good. Maybe it'll help it relax a little bit if you notice your shoulders like this, maybe. And sometimes even helping kids to imagine like the constriction and then letting it go, and do it and let it go. Kids love doing stuff like that. It makes them more aware of how they're carrying their body in the world, because a lot of times if they're anxious, they're carrying that, right? Like, yeah. And so that'll help them to have more consciousness around relaxing parts of their bodies that are often tense. And when something hurts, not to be mad at that part of our body, but sending it love, sending it lots of love, right? So those are a couple of ideas. The other one that I really love to share with people, which I should probably do as kind of a closing blessing when we end the call, is one of the chapters that I have, exercises that I have in the chapter, which is more about affirming yourself and affirming those around you.
Great. Okay, we'll save that for the end then.
Yeah.
Great. Well, those are wonderful, and yeah, I love how they're connected with nature, and I think, you know, that anybody can do it anywhere. Pretty much everywhere has a tree, don't they?
Yeah, and sometimes I do it with the plant in my house. You know, if I'm not looking out the window, there's a really beautiful ficus in my living room, and I'll kind of hold his leaf really gently, and I'll breathe with him. Yeah, so even if you're not outdoors, you can figure a way out.
Yeah, wonderful. So in before we started the call, I mentioned to you that I had heard something about, I guess it's in one of the chapters of the book, about gratitude, and somebody had mentioned that they had written 68 thank yous to their father who was turning 68, and oh, that's you know, just so beautiful. And I mean, you can't get a better gift than that, really. So I just wondered if you could talk a bit about gratitude as adults, how we can be more grateful, and also, you know, maybe some ideas of teaching our kids how to be more grateful too.
Yes, yes.
And thank
so
you.
I want to honor Kyra Jewel-Lingo. That's the person who wrote the chapter that you're talking about. She was trained in the Thich Nhat Hanh lineage of Buddhism, and she's recently left and is doing work on her own now. So she's doing great work. So if you look her up on the internet or see her in the book chapter list, she's doing really good work, really good work. So gratitude practice is one of my hugest practices, actually. And again, this is gratitude for my kitty who's coming and saying hello right now. What I have been taught by my traditional medicine teachers is that gratitude practice and forgiveness practice are two of the root core foundational things that we need to learn to move in healthy ways in the world. So I mentioned that I do the tree practice every day. It's the kind of the tail end of a set of practices I do every morning. The very first one is actually gratitude practice. So I'll just start and say, I'm grateful for, and I'll rattle off so many things. If you do this every day, you find that this muscle grows and you start being grateful for everything. So I'll be grateful for my kitty, who's scratching my chair right now, wants attention. And I'm grateful for my family, my mother, my father, my brother, my sister, my husband. I'm grateful for this home I live in. I'm grateful for the food I ate this morning, the people who grew that food, picked the food, prepare the food, ship the food, sold the food. And sometimes that chain is really short if it's something we grew in our backyard. I'm grateful for, you know, things that happened the day before. I'm grateful for the opportunity to heal my body every day and to nourish it. You know, so I'll go through a really long list every day. And if there's one thing you can teach kids is actually to do this practice with them. Because if they see adults doing it, they'll do it too. And it is really, from an energy perspective in the traditional medicine world, we attract things to us by the energy we put out in the world. And so it's not to say that we shouldn't speak out when something's not working for us, because we should. But if we're able to sandwich two things something that's challenging for us with two things we're grateful for, because there's always something to be grateful for, it'll help people hear us when we need something. So that's just a good skill to teach children. And I really do think that they need to see adults practice it for them to do it. We can tell them to do it, but if we're not doing it, they're not going to do it. And then the other thing that one of my spiritual teachers taught me, Reverend Diana McDaniel, she said to me once, the universe is abundant and wants to give us things and is ready to give us more, but it's hard for it when we're not appreciating what we already have. One of the ways we signal to the universe that we're ready to receive more is by being grateful for what we have. And so I tell that to a lot of the women in my women's circle, like, if you do gratitude practice every morning, you'll find that the energy of your day changes. So I do think it's a really important thing to teach children very young, because if they make this part of their regular day, they'll do that. I did go to do a workshop for a bunch of teenagers once, and you really want to be on the call, don't you? You're so funny. He's like, I want to be here. He's a trickster. His name is Coyote, which is a trickster. He's like, I want attention right now. He's a little feral kitten that found us earlier this year, decided to move in. So with children, I think this aspect of teaching gratitude is really important, because one of the ways I've seen it play out in classrooms in this workshop that I did, they had bags up for all the children with their names on it. And then at the end of every day, they would ask each child to write one little note for everyone about something they were grateful for. And so you'd write one to each person, like, I'm grateful you played with me, or I'm grateful you answered that question right, or, you know, so they'd pick a couple kids, or they'd do all of them. And then that kid would get to pull out all his notes of gratitude and take them home with him and show them to his parents. And so that was really great, because that was teaching the kids gratitude with each other in the classroom. It was also teaching gratitude to their parents, because they were seeing how their kid is being appreciated by other kids, and then would make them more apt to do similar things at home. So that's one way I've seen it. I've also seen teachers just do appreciations at the end of class. Like, what are we grateful for? And they would just, everybody says one thing they're grateful for. So that's a great way to do that with children, to just wrap up in a circle saying one thing you're grateful for today that we did together. So there's lots of little ways like that, and it will change the energy of your classroom overnight if people are grateful with each other.
Something like that in place, they start thinking, right? They know it's coming, so they're looking out.
It's like, I'm looking out for something. Yeah, and I better do something nice, because otherwise no one's going to say anything about me, right? Because, and it's like that that thing about you get more bees with honey than you do with vinegar. If you're demonstrating appreciation and you're also having people experience appreciation, it's going to strengthen that muscle, and they're going to want to do it more without kind of making it about them being bad. It makes it about, let's reward when you're doing good things. So yeah, gratitude is a really, and it cultivates a lot of kindness between people, which is really important.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Okay, well, we're almost out of time, but before we do the practice that you are going to show us, you have another book as well, don't you? That you.
Yes, I wanted to share two things. Obviously, the Real World Mindfulness for Beginners, people can find at bit.ly Real World Mindfulness. And then I'm on the board of the Lions Roar Foundation, which is an amazing organization that puts out two magazines, Buddha Dharma and Lions Roar. And they occasionally do these special edition books. And this one just released, I just got mail the other day. It's How to Meditate, Easy to Follow Practices. So if you go to lionsroar.com, you'll find that. And they're based in Canada, like you. They're in Nova Scotia. So there's lots of great tools out there, I think, for people who are really wanting simple introduction to mindfulness.
So just before we go on to the practice, so if somebody just wants to be, you've given loads of ideas, but what's just a simple thing that somebody could do tonight or tomorrow
Mhm.
that's watching that could help them, start to feel like they can do this, and
Yeah,
not
yeah.
this big scary thing that they need
Mhm.
to do.
Yeah.
What would you recommend that they start with?
So here's one that I do in groups a lot when I'm ending talks, and people can
Okay.
modify it. And because my tradition is to always honor where things come from, one of my elders in the Boys and Men of Color work that I did, and some of the traditional medicine and ceremony work, is an elder named Jerry Teo, and he's helped to start the Compadres Network, which does a lot of really great curriculum for young people. But I want to tell the story of how this meditation came to me. We were at a Boys and Men of Color conference in the Central Valley in California, and there were all these young men that, society has thrown away or views with suspicion. And he had this big old slideshow of all these statistics around how they're, profiled by police and overrepresented in juvenile justice systems and all these things, um, and drop out at schools. And then he said, you know what? I'm not even going to show you the statistics. You know this. You live this every day. You're treated this way every day. And he said, I just want to apologize to you because there's so much trauma that happened to my ancestors and my people here in this country when people came over. And we have to do our healing so that we can be better guides to you. He's like, and I'm doing that now and trying to hold more ceremony and rites of passage for young men. He said, but you're our responsibility. It doesn't matter that I'm not your dad. In Indigenous culture, we're all responsible for the next generation. And so he said, I want to do a practice with you of affirmations. And he looked at them and he said, you are loved. You're a blessing. You are sacred just the way you are. He kept saying that over and over again. And I could see some of the young men got really emotional. And for many of them, that's probably the first time they've ever heard those words, And so that has become one that sat with me a lot. And I use it a lot in groups. And then Spirit has asked me to add some things to it. So I'm going to ask you to put your hands on your heart right now and repeat after me. I am loved.
I am loved.
I am a blessing.
I am a blessing.
I am sacred just the way I am.
I am sacred just the way I am.
I have dignity.
I have dignity.
I have wisdom and gifts for the whole.
I have wisdom and gifts for the whole.
And then when I'm with a group of people, and you can do this with the group of children, you can have them then repeat after you for each other. You are loved.
You are loved.
You are a blessing.
You are a blessing.
You are sacred just the way you are.
You are sacred just the way you are.
You have dignity.
You have dignity.
You have wisdom and gifts for the whole.
You have wisdom and gifts for the whole.
So that's a lovely affirmation to end a day with, and you can adapt it if they're younger kids to not have the last ones. But it's really great because then people start to remember their inherent worth and not their badness, and they remember to look for it in other people too. And so that's a really great one to share with children. It's in one of the early chapters of the book. And I'm really grateful to my elder, Jerry Teo, for kind of being the seed of what it's become for me now. Yeah.
So true. Some people need to be reminded that everyone is worthy and loved, and people tend to forget, right? And
get so many reasons we forget.
So that's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And is there any last tips or any other thing you would like to share with us before we end today?
I would just say for the people who are new to this and are kind of tentative or think you're going to mess it up, just to view it as an experiment and to do what matters more is the intention in your heart. It's not about getting it perfect. And you'll find, like I said, Jerry gave that blessing to me in a certain context. And then when I started working with it, I had people put hands over their hearts and I added something to the end. I always honor where it comes from or where it started. but I also acknowledge that I've adapted it and it has a new life, and it'll probably, someone who hears it on this will do some other thing, like maybe they'll make them go, I'm loved. I don't know, to honor where things come from and then let them flow and become what they want to become. And if you're not so attached to getting things perfect, things can flow through you instead of you controlling them. Like, try to let go the illusion of control and judgment towards yourself and what you're doing, and it'll flow a lot easier for you.
Thank you so much, Brenda. And again, the book is called Real World Mindfulness for Beginners and Mindfulness for Beginners, and we'll put the links to both of those on our book page, so you can order them, and also how to contact Brenda if you want to get in touch with her for anything. So thank you once again for coming on the Preschool Mindfulness Summit.
Thanks so much for having me share today.
Thanks, Brenda.